Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Stop being pushy. I'm going to teach you how to lead a sales conversation. So it's end of the month. A lot of people are getting close to, hey, we got to shut the month down, hit certain numbers, and your revenue has got to be at a certain standard. All these things across multiple companies, even your own firm, right? Even your own firm got revenue numbers to hit. Your sales reps are becoming pushy. You yourself on the call. And also, like, the biggest misconception in sales is believing that leading a conversation means controlling a person. It doesn't, right? Elite salespeople never control people. That's not what it's about. Look, you gotta have a process, okay? You gotta have a process. It's about controlling the process. So those are two different things, right? Most salespeople think, hey, I'm losing the deal because I wasn't persuasive enough. That's not true either. You're losing because you surrendered leadership, okay? The prospect dictates the conversation. The prospect asked all the questions, jumps on top of the topic. The prospect decides what gets discussed and when. So by the end of the call, the salesperson has answered 20 questions, given away pricing, explained the program, displaying the services, defended objections, and still hasn't discovered whether the prospect has a real problem. So that isn't a sales conversation. I call that customer service, right? You thought you were in sales, but that, what I just went over, that's junk, okay? So it's also not about domination either. It's about direction and taking people and showing them the outcome of using your product or using your service and getting them to the solution of their desire. So there's levels to it, right? And I'm going to help walk you through that so that you don't become pushy, but allow you to still have control, right? So go ahead and write this down, the doctor principle, right? So look, I talk about it all the time. Imagine you walk into a doctor's office, okay, and the doctor doesn't ask. So imagine he doesn't ask. So what would you like to do today? Instead they say, tell me what brought you in, okay? Imagine if they asked you that. So what would you like to do today? That would freak you out, all right? So what happens is you go in, you get in there, they call you back, and what? Hey, they sit you down, so what brought you in today? Notice something, okay? The doctor immediately establishes structure. They decide what questions are asked, what order asked, what information matters, what solutions are discussed, whether treatment is even appropriate, right? No one calls that pushy. Well, why? Because authority isn't communicated through pressure, it's communicated through process. People don't resist leadership, they resist manipulation, and the best salespeople sound less like salespeople and more like trusted professionals. I would never sell and tell. Right? I'm going to ask questions to get the person to sell themselves, okay? And get them to realize how I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm coming to. Then I would make my recommendation, right? So you got to do it through questions. You get up in front of me and start going off like an auctioneer, and a lot of you think that's sales. Well, that's not, right? Well, I got the gift of gab. I can talk. Let me be a salesman. Well, hopefully you're smart and know how to slow down and ask questions, and hopefully you're good at finding problems and solving problems. So that's more of the sales game than I would say. The person who talks the most during the sales conversation probably going to lose the deal. Okay, let's go down to the next section. All right, the next section, the psychology of why pushiness fails. Write that down. The psychology of why pushiness fails. All right. Now here's the thing. Every human being has listen. Every human being, okay, inside of them, built inside of them, reactance, okay? A psychological defense, okay? It's reactance. And reactance occurs whenever someone feels their freedom is threatened. The brain immediately shifts from evaluating your situation to protecting its autonomy. The moment a prospect thinks, hey, he's trying to sell me, the brain stops asking, is this a good idea, and starts asking, how do I get out of this conversation? And that's why pressure almost always creates resistance. The harder you push, the harder people pull away. Elite salespeople never create reactance, they create curiosity. All right, let's go to the next thing. Leadership is invisible. The greatest conversational leaders rarely appear controlling. They simply guide. Think about great interviewers, okay? I sit there, I'm watching them on the show. Man, they're really conducting it well, asking beautiful questions. You think of a great therapist, attorney, great consultants. It's all the same. They're asking questions, yet somehow they're controlling every minute of the conversation. Why, though? Because questions determine direction. So whoever controls the questions controls the conversation, right? It's common sense to me. Let's move down next. Let's move down to the next module, and that's questions create cognitive control. Questions create cognitive control. Here's something that most salespeople, and they get in these trainings, okay, and you're listening to these sales trainers, and they never teach this stuff. It's that selling is telling, and that statements tell, and questions actually make people think, and Thinking changes ownership. When you ask what's frustrating you about your bookkeeping, the brain has no choice. It must search memory. It must retrieve emotion. It must organize thoughts. Neuroscientists call this active retrieval. The prospect is literally doing cognitive work. The more cognitive work they perform, the more psychologically invested they become in solving that actual problem. And that's why the best salespeople ask questions, not because scripts tell them to, because questions create ownership. Let's move down to the next module here, and that's curiosity is control. Curiosity is control. Write that down. Okay? Most salespeople say, hey, we can help with bookkeeping. Well, the best salespeople would instead replace that with, so John, walk me through what's happening. Jack, walk me through what's happening. Jill, walk me through what's happening. Right? Prospects most likely to say, hey, we're behind. And most of you would respond and say, well, our service fixes that, or our program fixes that. Well, I would say, well, compared to what? Okay? Prospects would say, compared to where we'd like to be, I would probably say, well, what's preventing you from doing that? Well, and they would probably respond and say, well, taking on more clients. I would say, how many? They'd say probably 5, and I would say, why? Well, what's 5 clients worth annually, right? Notice something. The salesperson hasn't convinced anyone. The prospect is building their own case. Now, that's real sales leadership. I want to be able to guide people, okay? How do I do it? Questions. So confirm and expand so like you can better understand. All right? Now you're leading them along the path to your solution through these questions. Hopefully that's making sense for you. Hey, the next module is actually titled Stop Solving Problems Too Early. And this is where the most salespeople lose control. Okay? The second you hear pain, you start prescribing. So imagine telling a doctor, my knee hurts, and before asking anything else, he says, hey, you need surgery, right? It's like you'd walk out. Yeah, I hear salespeople do this daily. Prospect says, hey, business is slow, or business has slowed down. And you say, well, you would need our advisory program, or you need our advisory services. That's not what you say. Okay? Elite salespeople diagnose before they prescribe because people don't buy solutions, they buy confidence in the diagnosis, right? Let's go to the next module here. Hey, and so in the next module, it's important for you to understand that there are 4 layers of discovery, right? And most reps, you stay on the surface. The elite reps go 4 levels deep. So we're going to cover 4 levels right here. And with those 4 levels, layer 1, we have the situation. What is happening? So I need to figure out what's going on. So I'd say to them, so Janet, tell me what's going on. Then we have layer 2, which is operational impact, okay? And with layer 2, how is this affecting the business? What slows down because of that, Jill? Jack, what's falling through the cracks? Talk to me about that. All right, let's go to layer 3. And we're going to move down to layer 4. And so layer 3 is the financial impact. Now quantify it. What does that cost every month, okay? How much revenue stays on the table? Talk to me about that. So until money is attached, urgency rarely exists. You just have to remember that. And then layer 4, I titled it the emotional impact. And this is where decisions are made. You need to ask them, how frustrating has that been? How much mental energy does this consume every week? So if nothing changes over the next year, how would that affect you? Logic justifies purchases. Emotion drives them. Let's go down a little bit here to this module, which is titled The Gap is What Creates Demand. Nobody buys because they understand your product. That's something you need to get through their head. They also don't buy because they like you. Also need to get that through your head, right? This is where they're at. Their current reality, we got to get them down desired future, obstacle, cost, urgency, decision. So you have to understand that it's like your job isn't selling, your job is just expanding awareness of the gap. And the larger the gap becomes, the more valuable the bridge appears. And you have to do it through questions. And that leads me to my next module. Never chase questions. Title it Never Chase Questions. You can't just chase questions, right? Prospects ask questions for 2 reasons. Sometimes they're genuinely curious, and sometimes they're trying to regain control. The worst salespeople answer everything immediately, but the best redirect without avoiding. How much does it cost? Instead of immediately answering, what you should say instead is, happy to cover pricing. Before I do, I want to make sure I'm talking about the right solution because pricing depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Can I ask you something first? Right? Did you avoid the question? No, you simply controlled the sequence, and that's a huge difference. Let's go over to the permission loop, right? And title this next module the permission loop, okay? And one of the most advanced conversational tools is this. Throughout the conversation, ask for permission. Like, have common sense. You want to go somewhere and within that convo, like, ask for permission. You got to ask for, watch me. Mind if I ask something? Hey, Janet, and without disrespecting you at all, is there any way I can challenge that, right? Would it be okay if I showed you what I'm seeing? So you have to realize, like, yeah, obviously you do need no's in your conversation. It can't all be yes. It can't all be doom and gloom. Every yes creates a psychological commitment. The conversation becomes collaborative, not confrontational, and ironically, asking permission actually increases your authority. Okay? So let's go to the next module here. It's called Neutral Language Creates Authority. Neutral language creates authority. Listen to these differences, right? Jen, I think you really love this. That's not good. Okay? A lot of you say that. Well, listen, based on what you told me, I think you'd really love this. Like, what is that? Based on everything you've shared, this appears to solve the problems that we've identified in our conversation today. Boom. Instead of trust me, replace trusting. A lot of you say trust me. Don't say that. Replace it with this. Here's why clients in situations similar to yours made this decision. Okay? Let's go to the next one. This is our best program. This is our best service. Hey, based on your goals, this is the service I'd recommend. Right? Authority doesn't sound excited. Authority sounds objective. And that's what you have to realize. Okay? Hopefully all this is making sense to you. You need to be writing it down. What's written is retained. If you're not learning, you're probably not earning, right? If you're not training, you're complaining. All right, hey, so let's go to the next one here. Silence is a leadership tool. Most salespeople fear silence. A lot of you. You're so soft and anxiety-driven and weak-minded that you can't even use silence as a tool. And silence is so wonderful because in that silence, most people can't handle silence. I'm more so having fun with you, right? So if the more silent you are after asking questions, the longer, the more they'll sell themselves. They'll sell themselves. Because they don't want to sit in the silence, right? Look, you got to create it. Ask them, what's your biggest concern? And then don't answer. Let them respond like 3 different times. Say nothing. That silence right there, what it does is it reinforces reflection. Okay, and reflection produces honesty, and talking fills space. Silence creates truth. The first person who rushes to speak, usually what you'll see is they'll lose control of that conversation. So let's go to the next section here. Disqualification builds trust. I do this all the time. I'm going to take it away from them, right? And here's one of the biggest mindset shifts that you can have is stop trying to qualify everyone. Actually start trying to disqualify everyone. So I don't know yet whether you're the right fit, or I don't know yet whether we're the right fit or not. Or based on what you've shared so far, there are a few things I need to understand before I recommend moving forward with us. You see, the last thing I'd want you to do is waste your time and money, right? Okay? Think about what just happened psychologically. You became selective, scarcity increases value, experts elevate, salespeople chase. The moment you stop chasing, people will start leaning in. And the other thing is, like, closing should feel boring. Write that down. If your close feels dramatic, you probably skip discovery. A proper close should sound something like this. Hey, John, earlier you mentioned you're losing about $4,000 each month because of bookkeeping. Delays prevent you from taking on additional clients. You also shared that your goal is to grow your firm before year end without working more hours. Based on everything we've uncovered today, I believe the professional bookkeeper program is the strongest fit for what you're hoping to accomplish, or our professional bookkeeping service is the strongest fit for what you're hoping to accomplish. So then you would ask something like, does moving forward feel like the next logical step, or is there something we still need to work through together? So obviously, I was reading it kind of slow, just so that you could write it down. I know you would like to use these on your calls. Don't feel like you can't rewind it backwards, okay? I mean, you got to quit being that way. No pressure, no again, it's no closing tricks, okay? It's all logic. You see, I'll even say it again for you. Earlier you mentioned you're losing about $4,000 each month because bookkeeping delays prevent you from taking on additional clients. You also shared that your goal is to grow your firm before year end without working more hours. Based on everything we've uncovered today, I believe the professional bookkeeping program is the strongest fit for helping you accomplish that, or our professional bookkeeping service will be the strongest fit for helping you accomplish that. Does moving forward feel like the next logical step, or is there something we still need to work through together? Okay, now, I'm obviously reading it, okay? You would say it more conversational on the call. Let's go to the next thing. The lead framework, all right? The lead framework. And this is it. Every elite sales conversation follows the same structure, okay? It's lead, so L-E-A-D. L stands for lead the process. E stands for explore deeply, A stands for assess before advising, and D stands for direct the next step. So L, lead the process. Right under that, Own the agenda, the sequence, and the pace, not the prospect's decision. Okay? And then what I want you to do is go over to E, which is explore deeply. You need to move beyond symptoms, okay? Discover operational, financial, and emotional consequences. Drop down to A, assess before advising. And diagnose thoroughly before recommending a solution. Confidence in the diagnosis creates confidence in the prescription, right? Direct the next step. D, never force a decision. Make the logical next step obvious through clarity, not pressure. And that's part of the beauty. So hopefully this helps you guys. Just remember, how do I help them understand their situation so clearly that the right decision becomes obvious? And that's the difference between selling and leading. People don't resent being led, they resent being pushed. So hopefully this video helps you lead your conversations without being pushy.